Hi, this is Dan and Lexi from Dan Schultz Outdoors, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers!
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beachley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
I'm Jay. Let's go. From Jay's Way, keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Callan, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shug here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Callan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Tonight's episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show. My name is Dennis, also known as CanoeHound, and if this is your first time tuning in, thanks very much for joining us tonight. You know what? We got a great show lined up tonight, and I always know it's going to be a great show when I see my number of subscribers jump, by a significant number. It means that people are interested in what we're bringing to you. So, yes, we are going to have an interesting show tonight. We got some great guests on covering a great topic of route planning, maps, and finding crown land in Ontario, amongst other things, because this route planning or canoe trip or hiking or whatever it might be that is your backcountry, it takes some planning, and to have resources available to you really makes a difference when that happens. But before we get on with tonight's show, of course, we do have a bunch of announcements just to keep up with things. And we always start with last week's show. Last week's show, we had a great episode with Kevin Ride, Daniel Maylott, and Peter Desmond. And we talked about maintaining a bear-proof or a bear-safe environment when you're in the backcountry. We covered all different types of things, right from all the precautionary things that you can do to cover or to make yourself safe in the backcountry, covering food storage and proper ways to hang or to place your food to make sure bears aren't coming in to get it. And of course, one of the big things that we always talk about is the backcountry etiquette, trying to maintain and keep a clean environment back there so that bears aren't attracted to it. And not only is that safer for you, but it's also safer for the people that follow you. So if you happen to miss that episode, by all means, go back into our past episodes playlist and check it out. It's a really good one. And I think that's the second show we've done on that has covered bear safety. We did one a couple of years previous, but all that information does not get old. So even go back and check out that one. And you know what? I'm sure you'll really enjoy that. Now, I went camping this past weekend, a long weekend here myself, went up to Queen Elizabeth II Wildlands Provincial Park, just a couple of nights just to get out there for the first time of the season. And, it was funny because at the campsite there, they had all kinds of signs. I believe Kevin Callan mentioned a couple weeks ago that he believes that they're preparing to make that a paid park. And it was kind of evident by some of the signage I seen there. All the campsites are well marked with brand new signs, including signs about camp etiquette, how to keep your camp clean. Just all the vault toilets or the thunder boxes were all fairly new, probably within the last year or so. And you could tell that they've been doing some work in there to prepare things, the portages and stuff like that. All the signs are new. And so who knows? That might be coming down the pipe. I'm not saying it's happening, but I kind of agree with Kevin that something might be happening there. Anyways, let's see here. Next week on Canoe Hounds Outdoor Show is our season 4 finale. It'll be our 29th episode of the year. It'll be the last one for the season, but we may have a couple sprinkled throughout the summertime. There's a couple things that I may want to touch on throughout the summer. So the best way to stay in tune with that is to follow me on Facebook at Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show. Get on there, and you know what? We anytime we have something coming down the pipe, I like to post it on there. And also, I would probably get it out like here on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. But if you want to try and track us throughout the summer, so basically it'd be like season 4B, so it'd be sort of extension of season 4. But I don't know how many of them are going to happen, but you could probably count on 1, 2, maybe even 3. So it doesn't really matter. During that show next week, we're going to be doing a special draw for our channel members, and one lucky channel member is going to walk away with some great prizes. Let me just get this going across the screen right now. These here below are our channel members currently, and all of these people are currently entered into the draw. What we're giving away, like I say, about $750 worth of swag, including some Canoe Hound Adventures swag, baseball cap, coffee mug, hoodie, t-shirt, some other items. Stainless steel stick stoves, courtesy of Kid Products, along with a couple of other accessories. Some Novacraft canoe swag, meals from OTG Meals, a set of 4 maps from LatLong. These things are gems. We'll be talking a bit about these through tonight. Algonquin Outfitters items, including some products from Yeti, VOD, Buff, and a whole bunch more. Celis Marine has offered up an Eddy Up PFD, not PDF. Everybody makes that mistake, including this printer guy, right? But an Eddy Up PFD of your choice or color and size. And our friends over at Great Signs and Graphics are offering 50 custom printed decals with your logo on it or whatever you want on there within reason, right? But actually, whatever you want, doesn't really matter. So in order to be eligible for this, you have to become a channel member. And how do you become a channel member, and what benefits does it have? Well, right down here somewhere, you'll see a join button. Feel free to click on that and see what options are available. For as little as 13 cents a day, you can help support the channel, keep things going the way that they're going. And it's greatly appreciated, any support that we get from people. But all these people going across the bottom, you don't have to do anything. You're already entered. So we'll be doing that draw next week. So by all means, feel free to become a channel member. Let's see what else we got. This past week, we had a few people buy Canoe Hound a coffee. And thank you very much to Beauty of the Backcountry, Dwayne Burkout, Raphael Golick for your coffee contributions to the show. This one's on you. Thank you. Let's take a dip. This will be one of the cups that'll be won in that draw too, by the way. Let's see here. Some birthday wishes. You know what? Not a very busy week. There may be a lot of birthdays out there, but nobody's let me know about them. But a good friend of mine and somebody who's an inspiration to for the backcountry for me, a good buddy of mine, Bill Brown, who's not doing the best these days, but you know what? It's great to have him out to my day camp and stuff like that from time to time. Bill, happy birthday to you. For anybody that may have any birthday wishes coming up, please do send me an email or any good news that you'd like us to share. You know what? Just drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. We'll be sure to share that at least up until next week, which is the final show of the season. And then, that's that for that. So last week on the show, I had mentioned that Novacraft was taking part in a rather unique draw with some fantastic prizes. And I said that there'd be a lot more information to come out this week as I have invited Sarah Mills from Novacraft Canoes to join us to tell us a little bit about that. So let's bring Sarah on. Sarah.
Hi, Dennis.
Long time no see. I seen you like a week and a half ago, and I come down to Novacraft to pick up my brand new Bob Special, which I'm so happy with. Thank you.
Yeah, what a treat. We're seeing a lot of each other.
Yeah, for sure. So while we were talking during my little factory tour, you had mentioned that something was coming up very near and dear to your heart, and it was this draw. And I'm going to let you tell everybody about it because you have all the details. But tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so the draw was the brainchild of Kevin from Level 6 and myself. They have done a few kind of paddle-related fundraisers in the past for various causes that are related to outdoor recreation. A lot of times it's youth-focused nonprofit organizations, getting kids that otherwise wouldn't have access to paddling into paddling. And he approached Novacraft to see if we would want to participate in this draw and if we had any causes in mind. And the answers were yes and yes. So we've put together this amazing prize package from a suite of amazing brands. We're donating a canoe. Level 6 has some gear up for grabs, Phallus, marine wear, as well as Grey Owl paddles. And the prize package is basically we're selling tickets through Level 6's website, and all of the funds raised are going to an organization called Waterways. Waterways is based in Winnipeg, but they serve Indigenous youth all over the province of Manitoba and sometimes into Northwestern Ontario too. The organization basically got started by two competitive paddlers at the provincial and national level who realized that there wasn't a lot of representation of other Indigenous paddlers in the competitive paddling world. And at the same time, they had these two friends back in Winnipeg who started an outfitting company and were working really closely with Bloodvein First Nation. And Bloodvein First Nation was kind of putting some pressure on them, like, can you help us bring more outdoor recreation and more outdoor education to our community? So the four of them, the two starting the outfitting company and the two competitive paddlers, joined forces and developed this nonprofit org that brings canoe programming and outdoor education to remote Indigenous communities in Manitoba.
Awesome. So you mentioned to me earlier too that you have some props. Let's put up just the image again and tell everybody what the prizes are here.
Okay, for sure. So the canoe is our most popular canoe and our most popular material, which is the Prospector 16 in Tough Stuff, which is like a basalt and egret composite. It's got a two-tone color scheme, and then the kind of design that you see on the bow is a custom decal that we had made up, which is sort of evocative of Waterways logo. And then we've got really a whole bunch of gear from Level 6, a couple canoe packs a barrel harness, a yoke pad, and 2 insulated kind of canoe seats on the bow and stern seat there. We've got 2 Ungava PFDs from Salis, which are like really kind of high-end, feature-rich PFDs. And then we have 2 Cherry Tripper paddles donated from Grey Owl. So all of this stuff was donated by these brands, and every penny that we raise is going to Waterways.
That's incredible. So I have to sing the praises of the Ungava life jacket. I've got 2 of them, and they're fantastic life jackets. Salis Marine does it right. Level 6 does it right. Of course, Novacraft does it right, and so does Grey Owl Paddles. I've got a couple of them as well. So where and how? Oh wait, you have a prop that you wanted to show too, did you not?
Oh yes, I couldn't bring all of the prizes home with me to show off tonight on the live stream, so I just brought one. But this is what the level 6 canoe pack looks like here. So I've got it mounted on one of our bow seats, and I'll show you the inside.
Are the laces removed from that seat, or that clamps on both top and bottom?
It clamps on top and bottom, so it provides a little bit of padding to the seat itself.
Oh,
and
there you go. Okay.
Inside, you can see that it's like an insulated cooler bag, which is awesome for like day tripping if you're just going for a little rip around your local river or lake. You can toss some drinks or snacks or your first aid gear in that and keep it cool, which is really awesome.
How many people in the chat are thinking a perfect place to keep your beers?
Yeah.
Not for drinking on the canoe, for when you get to your campsite, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen this bag before, so I think it's kind of like a newer product from Level 6, but it seems really cool. I kind of want one myself.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. So when is the draw, and where can people get tickets?
So the tickets are available through Level 6's e-commerce platform. So you can buy your tickets there. They're $25 each, and you have until basically July 4th. So we're ending the raffle ticket sales at the end of the Canada Day long weekend. Mm-hmm. And we'll do the draw right after that and announce the winner on July 5th.
Excellent. So for anybody that might be interested, I posted the link in the description down below for where you can actually purchase the tickets, and then also the location where you can actually learn more about Waterways, it's called, right? About yes. Waterways, and you may wish to just donate to their cause, because they are doing some great things. And this is a time that we call upon our paddling community for support. And hey, who wouldn't want to win a great prize package like this? You know what? That's all standout stuff. And that canoe is a beauty. That's a nice canoe.
Yeah.
Novacraft does it right, people. What can we say, right? Hey, I like your T-shirt too, by the way.
I know we're matching tonight.
Yes. Is there anything else that you wanted to share on the on this with everybody?
Just thanks to everybody for all the support so far for the raffle, and I hope everybody had an amazing long weekend and continues to have a great paddling season.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thanks very much for sharing that with us. And there they are, people. Go and grab yourself a ticket, or 2 or 10 or 20. Depends how many you want or how badly you really want that prize package. It's a great value. So, Sarah, thanks very much. We will see you soon, and thanks for popping on.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Talk to you soon. There we go. Yeah. So that's a pretty awesome raffle. That's this is all right up our alley, right, people? Okay, anyway, so let's get on with tonight's show. We do have a lot to cover tonight. I've got a few great guests down in the basement to talk about this. So if you have any questions regarding tonight's show, please put them in the comments as usual. Lately, I've been trying to get to these comments later on in the show, or questions. So if you put the word question there, it gives me the ability to hit a star on it, and then I can pull up the questions there, and it's sort of like a rapid fire question thing. Or if it fits at the time, we'll try to get it in there as well. So without further ado, let's get on with tonight's topic. As you know, it's the time of year where many of us are planning our backcountry adventures, whether it be canoeing, kayaking, hiking, or whatever the adventure is. Many of us keep going back to the same old resources. Tonight, we hope to share some more great resources for you to utilize while planning the perfect outing. Tonight, we're joined by 4 passionate adventurers who wish to share some great ideas with you. First is the author of numerous best-selling guidebooks, including the new Top 70 Canoe Routes book, which is, I bet you he'll say it's a top seller of late. So please welcome to the live stream our good friend, Kevin Callan.
Hello!
Hello. Is it a bestseller yet, Kevin?
It was the first 2 days out of the gate. That was a surprise for me, to be quite honest, because it's the third, or I don't know what edition. Yeah. Yes, it is a good seller. Yes.
This thing is so thick. This is my workout regimen now for the canoe trips, right?
You could hold a door open with that. Like, yes.
If I put the top 70 or 60 routes on there, I got double the workout, man. I'm going to be buff. I'm going to be ripped like you are.
Oh, yeah, I'm buff. Yeah.
Okay. Next guest that we're bringing up on panel is a really knowledgeable backcountry adventurer. He's an instructor for Yours Outdoors. He's been on the show many, many times, and he's very resourceful when it comes to finding crown land. Please welcome to the stream, Martin Pine.
Good evening.
Martin Pine. Yeah. Take your pick. Flip, flop.
Just Martin's good.
My
mama calls me.
That's what your mama calls you. Good stuff. Let's see here. Our next is a map maker and the owner of a new business venture called LatLong Maps. Please welcome Arnaud Icard. How are you doing, Arnaud?
Very good. Hello.
Good. And finally, the owner, designer, and I guess the principal of a newer, well, I don't know how new it is. We'll find out tonight. A website that's really, really good for planning some great outings and some great locations. Please welcome to the live stream from Paddle Planner. We got Ben Strenge. I hope I said that last name right.
No, you didn't.
No? Okay, help me on this.
Strege.
Okay, I would have never got that. Anybody else? Kevin?
Strege.
Kevin Callahan? Hey, Kevin Callahan. How many people call you Kevin Callahan?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. Well, welcome, guys. Thanks very much for joining in tonight. So you all kind of know the premise of the show. Great way for us to share some resources that we have and maybe give people a bit of knowledge as to different resources that they might not be knowing about when it comes to planning their backcountry adventures. I kind of have it all broken down into sectors. So, we'll start with books and planning guides, get into some crown land, get into some maps, maybe some online planners, planning aids, and then maybe some phone apps if we have time. So let's start with Kevin. Kevin, you have written so many different guidebooks. Like the list goes on and on. Ontario canoe routes, 50, 60, 70, right? You've got Killarney, French River, cottage country, and it just keeps going on. Tell us a bit about the planning and what goes into producing a book like this.
Yeah, I'll do a real quick version of this. Is basically it started off, well, oh my Lord, over 3 decades ago. I wrote a book on Killarney. Actually, I found it. There's one copy. It was a history of Killarney, and I wrote this when I was 27 years old. And then at the end, like 2 weeks before I went to print, they were like, "Hey, you know what? We should write some places to go in Killarney. Like it's about the history. It's a coffee table book, whatever." And I did that. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, that did really well in that book. We should do that again." And I did cottage country canoe routes because Kirk Whipper, founder of the Canoe Museum, he came up to me at one of my shows when I was really young, and he goes, "Gee, oh my Lord, you're a lovely person, but you're so hyper as hell. And you got to focus." And I went, "What do I should focus on?" He goes, "I don't know, but you should focus on something." And I'll give me an answer. And he goes, "Well, we need more people out there. So write guidebooks to get people out there. And when they get out there, they'll actually see what's out there to save, and then we'll save it." So I went and looked at 2 books. So I am this book person, but I think some people would enjoy this. I looked at these 2 books in the library. right? Nick Nichols. Oh my God, Nick Nichols, and he wrote, and it's in a typewriter form, the canoe routes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a lot of information, and as well as this one from the government, it kind of told you where the routes were, but not a lot of information. So you had to actually write a letter to the government, like literally this is before times, right? And then you would get a pamphlet like this, and it would show you the information. So then I started writing these routes up, and then the government said, well, some of those routes aren't maintained anymore, and we're not going to maintain them anymore because of resource extraction, whatever. I'm like, yeah, well, you have a book out that promotes them by, hello. And so I started writing books up the creek, further up the creek, and brook trout and black flies and Algonquin, this classic, right? And what happened was, all of a sudden I started writing those pamphlets and going on the trips and then writing those up. And then people started going out. So Ripper was right. Like all these people went out. And the government said, well, hey, cease and desist. Well, you can't do that. I'm not an activist, right? I'm not knocking the government. But that was going on at the time. They didn't want to maintain these routes anymore. But they had to because Kevin Callan was writing about them. And but then that publisher was bought out, and then that publisher was bankrupt, and it was sold to another publisher called Firefly. I was on a 2-month canoe trip up in the far north. I didn't know what was going on because that was the days before the spot devices and InReach, whatever. And I came back, and Google happened, and so they changed all the names from brook trout and black flies didn't really go and find Algonquin canoe route. So they rewrote all those books and rechanged all the books to different names. I was like, oh, I missed that. And that all happened, right? And then they started doing the top 50, the top 60, the top 70. I got to say, I'm going to go through something really quick. And I know, Dennis, I go on a lot, but I really got to focus here tonight because I have some really cool stuff that a lot of people would really, really enjoy. So I'm going to start off with, first of all, forget the route. Why the route, right? Yes, I've already talked about the whole idea about finding those pamphlets and finding canoes. All the stuff I've written about were not routes I figured out. It were routes that existed already. I just got the information like a pamphlet, right? But there were storylines, and this is important for everybody tonight. How do you create a canoe route? Well, you start from a storyline, right? Yes, I can look at a map all night and figure out why should I do that. But it's the reason why you're going, right? So I got a whole bunch of books here that I've got storylines from where I created the canoe routes. And for example, like there's one right there. Like nobody even knows what that book is, but that's an incredible canoe route, but it's a storyline of the canoe route. The French River, amazing book about the French River, right?
Where do you find all these books, Kevin?
I have a problem.
You got the biggest library of
I do. Well, not the biggest. I know people have the biggest, but I tell you right now, like that's my thing, right? But look, Pagasimi, which is on the Spanish River, that's an amazing lake. The history of that lake is incredible. The river system around there is incredible because Grail, Archie Blaney, before we became Grail, worked there, and all the other history behind that. So I read this book. I went, I'm going to go and paddle there. What did I do? I went to the whole Spanish River area, and also the whole area that's up by Bisco Tasting. It's endless canoe routes. So how did Kevin ever figure out how to write about that area? Well, that book got me going, right? Or this one, unbelievable, guys. Like you got to like this. Incomplete Angler, right? That's in Algonquin. You got to read that book. And that was when the access point in Algonquin was actually Radiant Lake because of the train. There was no road. And these guys went on a canoe trip and went fishing. And when I did the Minas Link, I've done that. That's this route I don't know how many times because the Crow River to me is amazing. But I've reconstructed their route. So yes, I can tell you all about how to design a route, and I can tell you all the books you want and everything else. But why did I go and do the Crow River and Lavier Dixon and everything else? Because I read that book.
Kevin, does that one still have the library tag in it?
Well, people are asking that. I didn't steal them from the library. The library didn't have them, so I donated them to the library, but I had to redonate them so I can show them tonight. Anyway, that's another issue. This one here, nobody even knows anything about. It's a family that wrote about their canoe trips to Mississippi area, right? That one right there, right? Or here, this is fantastic. That book right there is an amazing book, right? It's all about rivers in Eastern Ontario or in Quebec. So when I read that book, I had to find all those routes, and I did them, and that's how this book was created. I read this book one night and said, well, wait a minute. Oh, God. Oh, God. I read that book and then said, yeah, I got to do that book. Okay, so I'm almost done. Sorry. Yeah, and things like this, right?
Yeah.
You ever seen that book before? No. But, or a newer book that's being redone, Old Growth Forests. Well, I'm going to go canoeing where all the old growth forests are. So I did. Created a route. So then you look at the guidebooks through history, and you've got things like that, right? When I went to Quetico, did I read that? Obviously, I read that because people were always ahead before me, right? And Hab Wilson, for example, look, Hab Wilson, is an icon for me, right? He did that, and now he's got that, and 30 years or 40 years later,
yeah, it's
right?
6 or 7 editions later, right?
Yeah. And then you got Des Moines. You've even got things like this. Here's a woman that wrote about the Kawartha Highlands and Halliburton Waterway Trail before they became parks. She just wrote a book. She was a politician and said, hey, look, I'm going to write a book. I think 20 sold. But the canoe routes are there before they became a park. And you look at, Haps Wild Muskoka. It's all trips through the Muskoka area, cottage country canoe routes, right? Or you look at something like this, where it's volunteer organizations that realize there's no information on places like Wabakimi, and they spend their time and energy to create a pamphlet on canoe routes in Wabakimi because there was no information there, right? Or you look at this old book here. This is some guy's journal about all the canoe routes in the far north, right? Why they do that? I don't know. Or this one is a classic. I hope, Delore, you have that book.
I do not know. Unless you lend it to me.
That is an amazing book. I remember back in the years and years ago, went to their presentation, and they wrote a book. They were nationalists, and they wrote a book about rivers in Ontario, and they were canoeists. And you were like, oh, geez, Kevin was the first person that wrote these guidebooks. No, I was not. Not at all. Even like that, and then you got pamphlets from that, right?
So
it's endless.
Just to interject here is though back in the we'll call them the earlier days, my earlier days of paddling. Anyways, I used to write to the Chamber of Commerce for different areas, and they were the ones that always happened to supply the pamphlets.
Yeah,
stuff like that. I got a handful of them downstairs still from say some of the early days. Do any of these places, or do you know of any place that still offers that service, or is it pretty much defunct?
No, they don't, and that's why I wrote this book, Lost Canoe Routes. What was happening was my guidebooks were doing really well, and the publisher really didn't think they would do that well, and they were. I mean, really well. I wasn't making a lot of money; they were making a lot of money. But I said, I want to do the Lost Canoe Routes, and they were like, well, nobody would ever buy that. I went, you kind of owe me, because here are routes that actually are not documented, they're not promoted, and they're going to be lost really soon. Well, what's the big deal, Kevin? We're not going to sell that many books. And I went, well, you owe me. And I wrote books where the government was saying we're no longer going to maintain those routes. And it was almost the demise of the junior rangers too. The junior rangers used to maintain routes like this, and that was the demise of that too. So I saw that coming, right? And yes, I'm this hyper happy camper guy, but my job that I work at is natural resources. I teach that. I see it coming, right? Mm-hmm. The Chinikushi, I saw it coming that they're going to find gold there. When I saw them drilling into the rock, and of course, in Wolf Lake, and everybody cursed me. Kevin, you rode out Chinnakuchi. How dare you? You know, that's my secret spot. It won't be your secret in 3 or 4 years when they find gold. So I wrote that. And most of those routes in there are no longer lost anymore. And yeah, so
you said I heard you say, I think it was on Paddling Adventures Radio, that Kirk Whipper had a big part of that book as well, in saying, you know, Kevin, write about it.
Yeah, because I always needed someone to focus me, and Kirk did. He always focused me. He goes, well, I'm like, squirrel, right? And so yeah, he did that. So it was really good. I'm really glad I did it. You know, the whole guidebook thing. But what I really love is that it's progressing. And you would think that actually now, like I remember when Google happened, MyCCR happened, Algonquin Adventures happened, Ottertooth happened. I'm thinking, well, my guidebooks are done. You know, Hap Wilson's guidebooks are done. And because you can get that information so easily online. Yet they didn't. My books really did sell well. And I'm thinking, why? It's because of the storyline. They were different, right? People follow the story. Because again, what I started off in the beginning, rambling on about, but the focus of it is, for tonight, to me personally, I can tell you endless. You show me a picture of a rock on a lake, and I'll tell you where that lake is. People that know me know that. I've traveled everywhere, and I have this fixation mind where I can identify weird things. But to me, what the more important thing is, after the end of tonight, get your maps out, look for an adventure, look for a storyline, and then look for the route, as opposed to the opposite. Kevin, I want a canoe route that's actually 2 hours north of Toronto. I want to see nobody. I don't want a portage, and I want to catch lots of fish. I was like, well, even that existed, I would not tell you where that was.
Yeah. Some secrets got to stay a secret, right?
Yeah. Because I had rules and regulations when I wrote all the guidebooks. It had to be a canoe route that existed, that was developed as a canoe route. It couldn't be something I made up. And it had to be something that could justify the amount of people that would go there. So, for example, 9 Mile Lake in Bala, people say, well, in your cottage canoe route, you never really wrote about that. I went, yeah, it's got 3 campsites. The landowner hates people that go there. But it's not really a designated canoe route. Well, it kind of was back in the 70s. But yeah, I didn't really write about that. So I had rules and regulations. And people... Not a lot of people, but you know, for good reason, they cursed me, saying, "Kevin Callan, you ruined." I had a guy the other day. He literally came up to me at the hardware store, and he just slam-based me, saying, "You ruined Kawartha Highlands. It's now a park. I used to go there before it was a park. You alone destroyed that place for me." And I get that sometimes, and I calmly say, "Well, are you saying to me right now that the Kawartha Highlands, or Haliburton Waterway Park, or Frontenac Parklands would actually be less busy?" No, it would be a zoo. I went, yeah. Queen Elizabeth Wildlands, Mississauga, right? Even the north of Killarney. No, it wouldn't. There's too many people wanting everything, self-interest society. So I'm glad I wrote the guidebooks. I'll go to my death loving that I did that.
So now, you through your earlier days, was what I want Martin to talk about being the Ontario Crownland Atlas. I know I said that wrong, but anyways, did you utilize that as well, like to find different areas? Because many people are actually, a lot of people prefer the provincial parks to go camping or canoeing into. And then a lot of people like myself prefer to utilize Crownland, right? You have a crossover of both. Did you utilize the Crown Atlas as well?
I'm sorry, was that directed at Kevin or at me?
Kevin, and then that'll be your segue, Martin.
Oh, I thought you were asking.
I totally blew it.
No, Kelly, did you utilize that? Because I know, like, you utilize pretty much every resource that's available out there. I'm sure even right up to this day, utilizing online stuff, or still, the paper maps and topos and stuff like that. But did you ever utilize the Crownland Atlas?
Oh yeah, if you can understand it.
Right.
Yeah. And Martin actually would be a better person for that, whatever. But no, I'm obsessed with, I think everybody, to be quite honest, obsessed, especially in February, like March, like we're looking at maps and everything, trying to figure out where we go. And then all of a sudden we go, and I don't know if you realize the bugs are really bad right now. It's, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Holy, but yeah, the Crownland Atlas is a really good resource. I hate saying back in the day, a while ago, there were maps you can get from the Ministry of Natural Resources that showed you Crown land, right? There was actually a physical map that showed you where Crown land was, and they didn't have them anymore. And I remember going to the Bancroft District Office, the MNR, which at that time I remember, and I'll shut up in a second. Really important thing is I remember going to the Bancroft District Minister of Natural Resources office and saying, "Hey, these canoe routes in the Kawarthas, and this is before the park. This is all Crown land. Do you have any information on those?" "Well, no, we're going to disband those canoe routes." I went, well, I have a volunteer organization in Peterborough that we go and clean out canoe routes because they're not maintained anymore. And this is, again, back in the early 90s, right? Late 80s. And they're like, we don't want you to do that. In fact, I went on the, the York River too. And I talked about it in the Bancroft Library one night. And the MNR showed up and said, "You can't talk about that." I went, "I mean, I can't talk about that." "Well, that's no longer a canoe route." I go, "That's your problem, not my problem. I'm still going to tell people to go canoeing." And I'm not an activist, whatever, but if you don't have a management plan on it, that's not my problem. It was supposed to be a waterway park back in 1972. And also Kawartha Highlands in 1978 was supposed to be a provincial park. And they disbanded everything. Then I all of a sudden wrote all these books, and then people start coming, and they're like, "Oh, Kevin, why is that my problem?"
Yeah.
You're either going to log it, mine it, or we're going to paddle it. It all comes down to that, right?
Sure.
So anyway, so going to Crown land was the Crown Land Atlas is very confusing, and a normal person can't understand it, and maybe they don't want them to, but it comes down to, and Pi Martin will say more and more about this. It's amazing Mecca. We have 82 or 87% of Ontario.
Not sure.
I think it's 87% of Ontario, mostly Northern Ontario, where we can actually camp for 21 days for free anywhere we want. And everybody's like, well, that's incredible. And there's two things about that. And I'll let everybody else go after this because I'm talking too much. The one is that, the government will say, "Well, you don't tell everybody about that." I went, "Well, it's Crown land. We own it.
And it's
public. I can't tell anybody about that." And the other is, don't tell anybody about my secret spot because I worked really hard to find it. And I agree with that. I think for Crown land, yes, Algonquin Park is not a secret. Killarney is not a secret. Tamagwin is not a secret. But last week I was going to one of my Crown land spots. I had my blue canoe on, and some guy was following me down this dirt road, and I pulled over and I said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Well, I just saw your canoe there, Kevin. I want to know where you're going." I went, "It took me 5 years to find this lake. Go to hell. Get the hell out of here."
Take a left when you get there, right?
Yeah. So here's a guidebook author that's telling somewhere where to go. So there's anyway.
Cool. So Martin, that brings into light now. I think it was 2 seasons ago when you were on the show one time. I can't remember which show it was, but you had made mention of this. It's called the Crown Land Use Policy Atlas, right?
The Ontario Crown Land, Ontario,
okay.
OCLUPA, Ontario Crown Land Use Policy Atlas. Yeah,
bingo.
You could tell it was written by a bureaucrat. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it is, and I guess in a nutshell, like how can it be useful for people like us planning backcountry adventures?
All right. Well, the advantage of OCLUPA, the Ontario Crown Land Use Policy Atlas, is that it's an interactive map. So, I mean, when you go to the website, just type in Crown Land Use Policy Atlas or Ontario Crown Land Use Policy Atlas, and it'll take you there. And what you see when you get there is a kind of diagram, a sketch diagram, a line diagram. It's a map of Ontario, and it's not meant for you and me. It's really meant for people who work in the Ministry of Natural Resources, right? It's meant for people who are involved in resource extraction and things like that, and doing surveys and forest management stuff, and that's what it's there for. It's not really meant for recreational Crown land users such as ourselves, but it's an interactive map, which is to say you can click on it and zoom in on any particular area, and it's a color-coded map. So most of it is kind of gray, and that's just sort of, ordinary private land. But there are certain areas that are, for instance, in green, right? They'll be sectioned off in green. They'll be, bordered and shaded in green like a coloring book. And the green areas would be conservation reserves, Ontario provincial parks, and so forth. And then there are other areas that are, for instance, yellow, and that's the Crown land that we're normally talking about when we're talking about Crown land camping. And I should clarify one thing. When we talk about Crown land, we're talking about land that belongs to the government, belongs to the Crown, belongs to all of us, okay? But some Crown land is heavily regulated and some is not. Algonquin Provincial Park is, strictly speaking, Crown land. It's just, there's a management plan for it. It's been designated a park. There's all kinds of rules and regulations. There's fees, there's schedules that you have to keep to, and booking and all that stuff. There's all kinds of things you can and can't do. But then there's other Crown land that is, as we say, or as it's designated, general use Crown land. And you can use it for recreational purposes. You can't go and just start extracting resources and cutting firewood for the season or anything like that. But you're allowed to go out there and camp and hike and snowshoe and snowmobile and that kind of stuff. But the general use Crown land is the kind of Crown land that we're talking about. Okay. But so it's not like there's a distinction to be made between Crown land and parks, because parks aren't Crown land. Parks are Crown land too. Conservation reserves are Crown land. There's all kinds of Crown land. But when you look at that interactive color-coded map, what you're going to see is a legend. You can click on the side and you can bring up a legend that tells you what all the colors mean. And there it is, all laid out for you. What is actually general use Crown land? What is private property? What is a conservation reserve? What is a provincial park? And better than that, there are policy reports. Every one of these areas will have a number. It'll say something like G347 or something like that. And you can click on that number or type that number into a field. And that's also an option on that interactive map. And then it brings up a policy report of exactly what is this? Let's say it's a conservation reserve, right? Okay, it's not a provincial park, it's a conservation reserve. It'll tell you what you can and can't do there. And now it is not user friendly. I usually describe it as user F off. Seems to be the governing design behind this site. It is slow and clunky when you click and want to zoom in. It takes forever to refresh and reload and actually zoom you in. If you want to scroll around, move from left to right, up and down on that map, same kind of thing. It's painfully slow. It's not the easiest thing to use on your phone. I recommend using it on a desktop or a laptop or something like that. And when you have a little bit of time, you're not going to, in 5 minutes, find Crown land. But the nice thing about it is that it doesn't just tell you where there is general use Crown land, which is the kind of stuff that we're looking for, but it will have a policy report that will tell you the disposition of that land and what it can be used for and what it can't be used for, whether or not you're in fact allowed to camp on it or not. And when in doubt, you can always contact the local municipality in which that Crown land is located and ask them, because sometimes a municipality will have rules in place on top of that. So something can be designated as Crown land because it's not a provincial park, but it might be governed or managed or maintained by a provincial authority. So for instance, Haliburton Highlands Water Trails, that's not a provincial park, right? But that is managed by the municipality. And there's this organization called Haliburton Highlands Water Trails that manages it, that takes care of it and operates it like a provincial park. And they have a website, and you can book online, and you have to reserve a specific site, and you can only stay for a certain amount of time. There are certain times of years when you can be there and when you can't. So it's different from Crown land. That is, it's different from general use Crown land. But it's not a provincial park, but there is a municipality or a township district that has taken over the running of it. So the Crown Land Policy Atlas tells you everything from the ministry's perspective, what is Crown land, right? From the government of Ontario's perspective, what is Crown land, what is general use Crown land, and the various kinds. And it has all of this information about the disposition of the land, what you can and cannot do. But sometimes there can be restrictions over and above that. And so it behooves you to contact the municipality in which that land is located to find out in case there's more regulations about it. But the beauty of this general use Crown land is, as Kevin says, you can camp there for 21 days, and not just for 21 days. You can camp there for 21 days, and then you have to move 100 meters. Then you have to move your camp just 100 meters, and then you can camp for another 21 days in that spot. And you can do that again and again. And that's simply to prevent people from squatting, right? That's the only reason why that rule is there. So it's not that you can only camp for 21 days. It's that you can only camp for 3 weeks, 21 days in one spot, and then you have to move 100 meters. You got to break camp and relocate. So you can actually spend an awful lot of your summer or any part of the year out there for long stretches, but you can't make a permanent camp. And for those who find it a little intimidating to use this website that I've described, I sort of my claim to fame when I started on YouTube was I made these 2 videos on how to find Crown land. What is Crown land? Explaining more or less what I just explained, and then describing in excruciating detail how to use the policy atlas. It's a set of walkthrough instructions where I'm literally moving my hand and pointing on the screen and moving the mouse around on the screen and telling you how to use it. Now, the interface has changed a little bit since I made that video many years ago, but all of the functionality that was there then is there now. Some of the menu options have changed and things are somewhat relocated, but it's all there. And what I have there in that video is a set of walkthrough instructions on how to locate Crown land, how to find out what you can and can't do, how to get information out of it, like coordinates, like GPS coordinates, for instance, to enter into your GPS or to enter into your phone. How to print out a map from that, how to then use that take that information and put it into Google Earth or Google Earth Pro so that you then get a 3D Google satellite image rendering of that very area that you were just looking at, so that you can then print your own color maps using updated Google satellite imagery. So that's what that video is about. And for the record, I don't make any money off of any of my videos. This is just a labor of love that I did because I wanted to get this out there for the reasons that Kevin has already outlined, which is that it's a kind of use it or lose it perspective that we have to take with respect to Crown land. If we don't get out there and use it, you will never value it if you don't know it exists, or if you know of it, but you've never been there, never fallen in love with a spot. When you go out there and you find a little piece of paradise on your own, right? And you had to work to get it. You had to look at this Crown Land Policy Use Atlas. You had to plan a day to do a little reconnaissance to figure out where the heck you could park your car. And I know people will have questions about that. Where to park your car, and then you do a day hike and you explore it, and then you find a little gem. You find a little lake or a pond or a stream or a creek or a river or something like that, or just a beautiful area. It doesn't have to be a canoe trip. It can just be, a backpacking trip. Or you find a portage, right, that's there and largely disused, right? When you find those gems, you are going to value them. And once you value them, you're going to want to protect it. You're going to want to protect it from other people. You're not going to want to tell the whole world about it. But you're definitely going to take an interest if you find out that some industry has taken an interest in resource extraction in that area, or some developer wants to purchase it from the government and put some monstrosity up there. You're going to have a say in it because you're going to know about it. You now have a stake in it because you fell in love with it as is.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there any other resources? Like I know of another one that does show Crown land, and many people have heard of it. It's called the Backroad Map Books. They have a GPS version. I have it in my Garmin InReach, and it shows detail as well as to what is Crown land, what is conservation or provincial parks and stuff like that based on their coloring. I'm sure Arnaud's probably got stuff like that in his maps, as does Ben. But are there any other resources that you would like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are apps for your phone, for instance, like iHunter is one that's very popular. Hunters want to hunt on Crown land, right? They either want to be on private property where they have permission to be, or they want to be on Crown land where they're allowed to hunt legally, but not trespassing on someone's property. So you can use iHunter, and iHunter is an app that has maps, so you don't get lost, and you can plot a trail where you're going. You can set waypoints and navigate to a certain area. And you can use that as well. And you can pay a little extra to get this layer of map that shows you where the Crown land is, but you got to pay a little extra for that part of the app. The problem is, though, it doesn't have all the information. It doesn't have all of the policy report information that you should have if you're going to be camping. It's one thing to be just walking through the woods because for the purposes of hunting, right? But if you want to be camping, if you're going to be setting up camp and stuff like that, you want to make sure that you're in an area where you're allowed to be, that you're not in a deer yard in a season when you're not supposed to be there, or something like that.
Or to make sure you're not encroaching on public land.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's all kinds of lands that you're not. But hunters want to make sure that they don't end up, trespassing all over private property, for instance, and start, shooting up the wildlife on someone's property.
That's what I meant.
So
Personal
iHunter is one that you could use, but that's an app that you have to pay for. It works on your phone. It's a little clunky, I have to say. I'm not entirely. I mean, I paid for the service, I paid for the app, and I paid for that extra layer just to try it out. I'm not won over by it. I think the interface is not great, little hard to use, but a lot of people swear by it. So I think it's more to do with the fact that I'm kind of an old fuddy-duddy, and I don't adapt to new technology very well. So it could be something to do with that. But iHunter is one, and there are others. I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but that's the one that I've been using for a little while. So, and that's a kind of quick and dirty way when you're out and about navigating, right? You don't want to break out your desktop or your laptop and, in your notebook and fire it up to see where you are using the Crown Land Policy Use Atlas. But those apps are actually useful when you're actually out there.
Yeah, for sure. These are all things that, a lot of people might not be aware of that they can utilize in their planning. Like, if you're doing a good old deep canoe trip into the unknown lands, it gives you the opportunity to know if you're maybe passing through, indigenous properties or
right.
indigenous lands, or
yes,
like you say, going through a claim or going through personal property of somebody. It's good to know this stuff so that you can plan accordingly, right? And when you're planning stuff like that, that leads us on to the next thing. You're from Ben's created a website called Paddle Planner, and I'm sure a lot of that stuff is covered in his route planning maps. Let's learn a little bit about Paddle Planner, and then we'll get on to Arnaud with LatLong Maps, and we'll bring everything together. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and Paddle Planner.
Sure. So Paddle Planner was started 12 years ago, and it's when I started planning my own canoe trips. I grew up canoeing with my dad, but that transition to, I going with somebody else to I'm now actually the group leader, and I'm trying to do all the planning and figuring out, gathering all the maps and trying to figure out how far can I go. And I wanted an easy answer to that question. And I love paper maps, but using a paper map, it's not easy to get that answer. So I was thinking, someone must have created something like Google Directions for canoeing, where I can just click on one point, click on another, and find it. I searched for months on the internet, and I found nothing. So I thought, I'll just build it myself. It'll be a fun little project. Thousands of hours later, we have Paddle Planner, which does that. Of course, it's taken me many more hours to actually build the website than it would have taken me to just do the math on the paper maps, but it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, I met you at Canoecopia, as I mentioned off the top of the show, and one of your assistants there actually took me through planning a canoe route on Paddle Planner. I know you cover how many different areas geographically do you cover on Paddle Planner?
So we cover a lot of the major paddling parks, and it's tough to say how many parks we cover, since there's paddling areas. Like if you go to Wabakimi, there's Wabakimi itself, and then a whole bunch of parks surrounding it. I kind of count that as one. Same with Algonquin, where you have Algonquin and then a whole bunch of little parks around it. So I count 11 paddling areas that we cover. Mm-hmm. So a lot in Ontario, Manitoba, and in the U.S. as well. So Minnesota, Wisconsin.
And you're working on more, obviously.
Yes, always working on more. A work in progress. We're going to add a lot of rivers. We're working on Temagami right now. And yeah, so Illinois rivers, Temagami, and a few other places as well.
So take everybody through what Paddle Planner is. How does it work?
Do you want me to share the website? I can share my screen. If
Yeah,
you want.
yeah. If you want to do a screen share, I'm more than welcome to put that up.
See if I can figure this out, huh?
Just go to the bottom. You'll see present. When you click on present, do a share screen.
I think I got it.
And let's see here. Let me find it and add the stream. There it is. Look at that.
All right. So this is our homepage. The easiest way to get to our maps is to click on build a route, and then you'll click on whichever area you're wanting to go to. Let's go to, here's Algonquin. So we'll go to that one. And I'll just zoom out a little bit. You can see this is Algonquin. The yellow are the designated canoe routes within there. But let's say I want to start over here at Tim River, and I am trying to go to Roseberry Lake. I'll just click on that and say that's my destination. And it does the calculations for me. So it should take the total distance is 14.7 kilometers. It should take me about 3 hours to do that. Okay. That is based on the average paddler. You can change that to beginner, veteran, or completely customize the speeds. And it does build in portage load and unload times. You'll notice I say portage instead of portage since I'm...
Yeah, it's portage.
Yeah, I'm south of the border.
Okay, so you can get very detailed with the way that you're actually planning this then.
Yeah. We can also, if you want to build, for example, a loop, I can say that's my first day, and then I might be going here for my second day, and then maybe over here for the third day, and let's go home. So I'll do that. And there we go. Now we have a complete loop mapped out, and I can get details on each of those days. So how far is it, and about how long is it going to take me?
Mm-hmm. That's you're making it simple for people there.
Yeah. My favorite way to plan trips is I plan trips by how long is it going to take me. So it might be, guessing, saying, okay, well, I want to go 5 hours. Well, sorry, that was correct. And I might be guessing here at first, like, oh, that's not 5, that's less than 3. Let's keep going here. And so that might be a bit of a guessing game. If you know how far you want to travel every day, I can turn on my travel assistant. And let's say I said I want to go 5 hours. I'll turn that on. And now when I click, it's going to highlight everything that's within 5 hours based on the current speeds. So I know I can get there in approximately 5 hours. And I can mark that as my day end. And then I know the next day, that's approximately within 5 hours as well. So that's my favorite way of planning my trips is I set my time limit and say, this is how far I want to go and how far can I go within that time.
So now this is planning your routes. Is there a way of actually downloading your maps or detailed maps, topos, anything like that would go along with it?
There are. So let's just set up this basic one here. I'll turn off that travel time assistant. So there's a couple of different things. First is you can download the GPX file. And so I can just download this, click on it, and now I can download the file, and that's going to have the route here. And you can upload that into any GPS app or onto your GPS. If you want to print it, you can go to export. You can. A lot of people take screenshots, I'll say that. And of course, screenshots work. I didn't mean to press that. However, screenshots don't fit on a piece of paper very well. So I wanted it to fit on a piece of paper. And so this is the size of a piece of paper. And I can change this. If I wanted it landscape, I can do that as well. So you can get that. We can also get different backgrounds. Let's look here. And I went to settings and clicked on map here. And let's see. Let's do that. This one takes a while to load since it is from the government. But you might be familiar with that background.
Yep. When you download a GPX file, is that a live file that's going into your GPS?
It's a track, so it's not. Yeah, it's a track. So it'll show up on your GPS, and you can see where you are in relation to the track.
Yeah.
So that works there as well. We have a lot of other things too. So that's the routing. We have a few other things on here. What else do I want to share at the moment? So I'm going to switch this back to a different background, one that might show up a little bit better.
Be nice if you could go over some of the areas that the paddle planner covers as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, I'll talk about the explore mode. A lot of people love seeing photos of campsites and such, or other people's comments. This might be getting into people getting upset that they shared their secret areas.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so here's someone said this is a 5-star campsite and put a little explanation there. A lot of these also have photos as well. So I'm not sure which one of these would, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to find them. Oh, this one does.
Okay, so users can actually go in and upload to your database.
Yes.
Things like this.
Yep.
Very interesting. And that's where your resource grows and grows, right? Based on input from users.
Yeah, the more people that use it, the more valuable it becomes. Boundary Waters and Quetico I've had up since the beginning, and those ones are quite extensive in the number of comments and photos and just information. And also, the more people that use it, people might tell me this campsite is actually located on a different peninsula or something, and so I go and correct it. So the more people that use it, also the more accurate it becomes.
Right. Perfect. And then can you go over the list of different areas that you cover?
Sure.
You said there's like 11 geographical areas?
There are 11. So these are them in alphabetical order. So Algonquin, that's, of course, all of you know where that is. Apostle Islands are Lake Superior in Wisconsin. Everglades National Park. I don't know how many people are aware that there is canoeing in Florida, paddling through the swamp there. Frontenac Provincial Park, that's south of Algonquin. Killarney, this area is interesting. It's a large area. It's called the Manitoba Ontario Wilderness. A lot of people are familiar with Woodland Caribou Provincial Park, but the area includes a lot of other things. Actually, let's just go into this one because it is an interesting place. So here's Woodland Caribou. The brown is burned areas, and you can see that a lot of this all burned within the past 5 years. So unfortunately, or fortunately, it's the way of the forest. Up here is Attakaki, and then we have Manigotagan River, Nopiming, and Whiteshell. Those are all on the Manitoba side. And then here's Eagle something conservation area that connects up through here. So here's an area in Wisconsin, Northern Highlands American Legion State Forest. I don't think too many people know about it, but like Kevin was talking about, you write a book, you put it on a website, and now people are aware that you can actually go and do these things, and they're great areas to paddle. Quetico Superior, that's my home area. This is the Boundary Waters in the US, Voyageurs National Park, also in Minnesota. And then on the Ontario side is Quetico Provincial Park, and a couple of other parks also along the border.
Interesting.
Sylvania Wilderness is on the Michigan-Wisconsin border. It's a small little area, little jewel. For those that live in the area, they know about it, but it's almost like a mini light Boundary Waters. Not quite the same. It's very different topography and forest cover, different trees and flora and fauna as well. But I know people worked hard to get that area protected. I'll talk about Wabakimi in a bit. Yellowstone National Park. I'm saving the best for last.
There you go.
Yellowstone National Park is, people often think of geysers and hiking, but there's actually a little bit of canoeing in there. And I added it just kind of as a test to see if I could add that area. So that's why we have Yellowstone on there. All right, back to Wabakimi. Let's click on that one. It's really hard to get a sense of scale for Wabakimi. It is
big.
It is 6 times the size of Quetico Provincial Park. So the paddling area. Since I'm south of the border, I think in acres. Sorry, you might have to convert. Quetico is 1 million acres. And Wabakimi, the area is 6 million. It is the largest paddling area in the world. At least I think that's what it's billed as. And this creating this map was a lot of work. I worked closely with Friends of Wabakimi to create it. And so they gave me all of those guidebooks that Kevin showed you earlier. And so I plotted each point from the guidebook onto the map, and it took a long time. So if we go in here, you can see, and just the sense of scale here. For example, I click on here, and it looks like this is close. That's a 4-hour paddle right there.
Yeah.
That's a full day of paddling. So, and when it says 4 hours, I do have to point out that means no breaks. That's people take breaks, so you have to factor in your breaks. But so Wabakimi, it's just massive, huge. So
I find it very interesting that you're able to just click on a couple of spots and it outlines that route or that directional and includes the portages and everything else. It's certainly come a long way from back in the days when, as Kevin mentioned earlier, that we're contacting chambers of commerce or different municipalities to get them to send you a route map when we're doing our research, right? So that's pretty unique. I could see the work that you've actually put into this. Quick question. So people to access this, I know it's a paid service. Do you have a free version and then you have paid versions? Explain to them what the different levels are, and nobody should question why he has a charge for this, because obviously there are thousands and thousands of hours and years that have gone into to producing this website. So I congratulate you on that. But what's available for packages?
Sure. I'll bring up this map here. All right. So I started sharing it again.
That's okay.
All right. So let's go up to Quetico. All right. So the free version is, first of all, I want to point out things that people have contributed, such as their photos or their campsite reviews or portage comments. Those are always going to be free. I don't consider that my work. So those will always be available. You don't even have to log into the website to see these comments. Same with going from one point to, sorry. Let's clear that. If I go from one point to one other point, that is free. Again, you don't even have to log into the website to do that. If you want to create something a little bit more complicated, like a loop, once you get beyond 2 points, so for example, I click on there, that requires a paid subscription. And the travel time assistant that I showed earlier, that also requires a subscription. And downloading the GPX files and the exporting this.
Just the real meat and potatoes of the whole website, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So those types of features are upgraded. I can actually show you quickly some of the different things here. I'll show you one other thing that is paid that I developed last year, and I really like it. It was in somebody wanted this, and I said it's a great idea. Something is loading very slowly right now.
Somebody else's internet woes. Customized campsite GPX file.
Yeah, it's for some reason my internet seems to be going a little slow at the moment.
Hey Ben, while people are waiting for that, I got a question for you from the old timer here. So I think what you're doing is incredible, especially from a guy for me writing guidebooks from pamphlets and written letters, whatever. But I remember back in the time too where I was writing guidebooks and people were saying, did you actually do that canoe route? Of course, I obviously did. I did it more than once. That's what I went for. Do you have people now with the new technology sort of question you, like, you have this incredible information, do you actually go canoeing in these areas? Do you have that question given to you? Or?
I do sometimes. Of course, I haven't gone to all of these areas. I haven't gone to every single lake in Wabakimi, not even every single lake in the Boundary Waters. However, I don't need to know how to get around an island. If I see it on a satellite image, there's only so many ways you can go around an island or go across a lake. And
yeah,
so
it's just like, again, the old timer person's sort of saying it's almost like robotic. That we've gone from canoe writers writing guidebooks that actually went on trips and told the stories about it to you actually having a computer program, which I think is incredible. Like, I actually love your stuff. But it's like, are we doomed? Like,
my goal,
I don't think so. I really don't.
My goal is, for example, when I've been scared of going to a place like Wabakimi because the lack of information to me was a showstopper. I didn't know what to do, where to go, or where to get maps. And for me, even in the process of creating that map and working with Friends of Wabakimi and creating it, I'm thinking, oh, I'm now comfortable doing that. Now, I am a very experienced canoe camper. I've gone on 70 wilderness trips. I'm a guide in the Boundary Waters. So I do a lot of this stuff. But again, I'm trying to figure out on a new trip, how far is it going to take me? I use my own tools.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I'm planning my Wabakimi trip this year, and I felt the same way. I really felt the same way, that it was it's rather difficult to find resources for it until you start really digging. And then, like you say, you contact and become a member of Friends of Wabakimi. You find stuff like Paddle Planner and different maps and write-ups and stories. And before you know it, you keep digging in and everything starts coming together, right? So that's where Paddle Planner's website really comes into play for something like this. And Kevin, I don't think you ever have to worry about something as being a writer, because everybody loves a good book, right?
Oh, I'm not worried about it all. I think it's a really good question, though, is because to me, Ben is sort of the future, right? Mm-hmm. The question is, I just want to know if he had random people saying, well, there's lots of information. Have you actually ever been there? And Ben, I know you're a big canoeist. I actually know where you've been. So it's just spitting out in my head. right? It's like, have you had people sort of say, "Hey, Ben, great site. Were you actually there?" Have you had that? Because I had that back in the day where I wrote guidebooks and people say, "Were you actually on this river?" I'm like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" Of course I was.
The question I get more often is, which you probably get too, Kevin. I think you were talking about it. Was please take the campsite reviews off. You exposed my secret site, or I mean, it's not that I went there personally, but someone wrote about their secret site and they're upset. And
yeah, that is a
journal they wrote and posted somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's a fine line, because when I go to the Frontenac area, I do look at the sites before I book it. I look at the visual, and even though I would say, Kevin, that's wrong, because the adventure is to show up and you get what you get, right? I don't know.
That's what I did this past weekend at up at QE2. You know, I paddled around the lake and I checked out all the sites that were open, and then I picked the one that I wanted and paddled back there quick because people were starting to come in, right? So. Well, Ben, that's pretty awesome that you're putting together this resource. I could see, I could definitely see the use that it has, and keep up the great work, because there's a lot more areas to document. That's for sure. We're going to take a quick commercial break, a good chance to get rid of a beverage or bring a new beverage in. And you know what? When we do come back, we're going to do a quick swag giveaway, and then we're going to talk with Arnaud about LatLong Maps and what he's doing for our community. So with that being said, we will see everybody in a few short moments. If I can find it. You think I'd be prepared for this right now, right? See ya.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals, fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. All right, and welcome back to the second half of the show. Tonight we are talking about route planning, maps, and all kinds of neat things that will help you prepare and get yourself ready for backcountry adventures. We do have some great guests on here. And it's time for our swag giveaway. So with that being said, I'm going to bring Ben back up there because he does have something that he is actually offering for tonight's swag giveaway. We'll get him to explain that in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the question on the screen and how you enter tonight's swag giveaway. But please don't put the answer in the chat over there. Let's everybody see if you've been paying attention tonight. So Ben, what have you got? What have you got to give away tonight?
We are going to give away our Expedition Leader membership. So it's a 1-year membership to all the bells and whistles of Paddle Planner. So it's our highest level for individual users.
Excellent, excellent. So tonight's swag giveaway question is: Paddle Planner currently covers how many geographic paddle destinations? I know we mentioned it twice just during your little segment there, and so if you know how many areas geographically he covers, the general areas that cover many other areas, drop me an email at coasprize@gmail.com. That's COAS, Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, prize@gmail.com, and you have until Saturday night at midnight. At that time, I will do a drawing, and I'll reach out, contact the winner, and I'll carbon copy Ben in there, so he gets all the information as well. So I'll leave this tripping across the bottom of the screen here for a few moments, and I'll bring our guests back up on panel. So we have Kevin back here. Let's put everybody back in their order. And there, Martin. Martin, I'm missing all my clicks tonight. There we go. And we're going to go like that. There we go. We got the family back, right? Alrighty. So next we have Arnaud. Arnaud from LatLong Maps. Now, I met Arnaud quite by chance on a canoe trip last year when I was doing the Donald Lake Loop. I think I've told this story a few times before, but I run into him, his wife, and his daughter, Margot, who shares the same name as my grandmother. And yeah, you know what? It was really interesting talking with them on the portage, just saying hi. But at that time, I had no idea that Arnaud was a map maker. And I could hold mine up too, Kevin. And you know what? I met him again at another show, and he came up and reintroduced himself, and I recognized him by his very French accent. And and at that time, he told me that he had a company called LatLong Maps, and we'll let him go into detail. Arnaud, tell us a little bit about LatLong Maps, why you do what you do, and how long you've been doing this.
Yeah, so it's been going for a couple of years. So a bit like Ben, right? Like it's a walk of passion. And yes, these things take such a long time to make, right? And I see actually these tools are very complementary, right? Like this, you have your online tools and all that, like great, like auto calculation and route planning and all that. But when you're out there, it's good to have your old trusty paper map. As long as it's secured to a heavy bag or your canoe, it won't go anywhere. It won't break, fail, stop working. So that's the reliable paper piece. You're not gonna get lost. And yeah, why making maps now? I think there's just too little of them available. So of course, I'm not talking about mapping something like Rawakimi that would take a lifetime and mountains of paper to actually map the entire area. But I think there's not enough on the market. It's hard. You go and it's sold out all the time and available, or and there's room, I think, to do things a little bit differently. Like the maps I'm making, they're very simple looking. They're very plain. There's not too much stuff written on it. It's a bit of a blank canvas. It's the portages, campsites, and so on. But there's not like a lot of text on it, right? A lot of things. You can look at it, and hopefully you have a sense of the land. That's what I like about a paper map. There's great attention to detail that is put on the topographic features on it, and on things that matter for paddlers. Most of us, I think, do mainly site navigation. We look at the coastline, we look at the map, and you're like, yep, I see the point. I'm probably not lost, right? So the coastline design is very important. And same deal with campsites or portage entrances. It's sometimes you have the correct, accurate GPS position of the portage, but it's useful to just maybe move the entrance a little bit, a few pixels to the location that's really telling you, yes, it's on the east side of that bay, not on the west side. Don't go look there, like it's on the east side. So there's a lot of these graphic design these decisions to make things a little clearer, right? There's often that thing should you get a satellite image? It should be way better to navigate. There's everything on the satellite image. It's too much. What the map does is it's simplifying. You have less you have more of the stuff that matters, less of the stuff that don't matter. There's the thematic maps. It's just for a purpose, which is, well, for us, go canoeing and camping and hopefully not get lost in the process. So that's a bit my take on it. It's like old school stuff that I like maps printed one side. Right? I don't like flipping them over, like read the stuff at the back. I never read. I read Kevin's books. I like reading books, but the little tiny type on the back, I never read it.
Now you're
one
obviously
side, map notes are separate. There's a little bit like the bare bones stuff, like few canoe routes, how you make a reservation or not for a QE2. Not yet. I think it'd be good for me if that became a reservable provincial park. And then there's a little ruler that comes along with the map as well to help with these. So it's not like Ben's precision. You have to use the ruler and you kind of figure out what the distance is, but still useful planning.
Now they're very detailed too in the respect that you've got I keep putting up the QE2 one because this is the one I use this weekend, but I also have your Halliburton Highlands Water Trails edition, your Killarney edition, which I haven't even opened yet because I've not yet been to Killarney, and then Wolf and Crab Lakes area. So that's 4. You have any others in the works right now, or anything you care to share with us?
So there is one. I won't say which area it is because then I feel bound to it. And right now, so there's a thing like the work I do for these maps. There's a lot of corrections. So I do use government data, which is a great base to work off. But the area I'm working on right now, it's about correcting everything. I think that specific area, the data set is quite outdated and a lot of things change. So I need multiple, so satellite imagery is one thing, but mainly it's aerial photography. To look at what it looks like from a plane, right? To figure out exactly what. So there's this one tool. I can get a bit naughty, so Dennis, you tell me, you make a sign if I go into too much details.
No, you know what, you're doing okay, because you know what, I think paper maps are a very integral part of planning a canoe route. To know where, like you said, where the portages are they on the west side, or are they on the east side of the river, at the entrance? They come into play. I'm a paper guy. I like my paper maps. I like pulling everything together. I like pulling out the book and finding a route. Then I like to explore things like how much of this is crown land. Do I need a permit to park it or to camp in these particular areas? Do I have to pay to camp in these areas? Then I could go on and, go over to Paddle Planner and I could plan my route, a lot like what I'm doing right now with Wawakimi. I go there and I'm tinkering around and, trying to little pinpoint things to see how far I could travel in a day. Am I going to be able to meet my party at day 7? Because we got a really messed up trip going on, right? And then ultimately I'm going to make maps, and I'm going to print them and I'm going to laminate them. And then I'm going to use maps like this, or topographical maps, to come along with me, with my GPS.
So I think Kevin is pointing at something like maps. There's another
show us again, Kevin. I'll put your full screen.
That's also another idea with the paper map. And that's why I picked the paper I picked, is that it's an object, right? You can write on it yourself. So instead of having pre-printed all the little things, maybe, I don't know, you saw like a majestic moose at that area and you want to capture that. So you can draw on the maps I print and just have your own annotations. And I think a well-traveled area where you have your map that you made yours by scribbling on it is such a cool object. I think the new technologies, the stuff Ben is putting together, Kevin's books. They're all a series of tools that you use to, like, especially mainly in the winter, to dream up your perfect trip, and you have a series of tools to do that, and it all work together at the end, right? At the end, it's not about the map or the paints when you're paddling and you're out there and the black flies too.
Sure. So give us a little chronological order. You've got 4 map systems out here already. Very, very nicely presented, by the way. Like the QE2 one has 2 maps in it.
Yeah.
One for one area, one for the other area. It has the ruler and the guide notes.
Yeah.
And a
So
nice
there's
write-up on the back.
So reason for that is I hate super large maps. They are very impractical. Like I hate, like, and you can't even fold them back together. It's so terrible to use. So I like splitting it up. The first map I did was the Wolf Crab Lake. This is kind of a small area to map to begin with, because, well, they take a long time. So I try, and actually that's from one of Kevin's book. There's a story, and I like that idea actually of story. There's a story where you were looking for a trip to go with a young paddler that was very interested in catching fish. I forgot in which of your book it is, but then there's the whole story of saying, oh, I was looking for a trip that would be like a little bit of everything, maybe a little bit of portaging, but not too much, bit of paddling, but in an area that's nice. And I'm like, that's the perfect first trip, absolute beginner. Oh, I bought a canoe. What do I do? The type of trip. I'm not sure. So I'm like, okay, so that'd be the first map, like absolute beginner, first trip, nice area. And then I added a couple things. There's a trail that goes actually from Wolf Lake down to Long Lake, passing by Secret Lake, like an old forestry trail that goes through it. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna add that for people that want a bit of a challenge in the area that are not aware of it. And then, that area is, I like it. So easy access, beautiful little area. So that's the first map, small area, bit, I could chew on that area and see if I can actually put together a map, right? And then the second was Halibut Island water trail. I love that area. Again, easy access from the city, and quite a lot to see there. And yeah, love that area. And it's typically like there's two main areas you can go to the Poker Lakes, like the area with Big East Lake and that little loop. It's actually a tiny pocket. That's also great for a first trip. I think a little bit like portages are easy and short.
That was my first trip.
Oh,
my first canoe trip was based on this book by Kevin Callan. That was my first canoe trip. It was a Crown Land camping trip. It wasn't part of,
yet
the Water Trails management at the time. It was just pure Crown Land, general use. And you're right. That is an absolutely great first trip for beginners.
Exactly. So there's that. So that's included in the package. And then the Frost Center area, it's a little bit bigger with more options to design a route, or even on your own. So there's some that are well documented, and it's stunning. There's old growth forest there as well. There's a bit of everything. Quite a few cottages as well in the area, but yeah,
cool.
And then QE2, and then Killarney nearly killed me because it's a big area. And there's a lot of redrawing as well. So that's another thing I do is I look at the coastline and I revise everything. So there's a lot of corrective work, and it's super time consuming. I wish there was a way to share that data back somehow easily from my GIS software to, give that back to the governments. Like, yep, there it is. But at the same time, I know I'm an amateur. I am a map maker. I'm not a cartographer that has to work with all the government tolerance about like whatever they do on that side of things. But it could be nice to be able to contribute back these updated vector layers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got? Sorry, I'm just gonna. Sorry, got a question. I've always wanted to ask you. Have you got criticism on all of a sudden now you're the map person, and then someone else that created a map before you has said, "Hey, like that's my turf." Have you had that?
I have, yeah, I have, but
how do you deal with that?
Too
How do you
much
deal with
about that.
Well, how do you do
that's
that? All of us. Before we answer, but all of us have dealt with that because nobody has been the first person to the moon has been the first person to the moon, but we all gather information because again, back in the day when I did routes, you cannot copy anything from the government top of maps. That was illegal. It would go to a court case.
So things have changed with the open data program, which like Ontario promotes. So there's a legal requirement. If I do use any data coming from the government, I do have to put it in the copyright notice. So now it's that these data sets are open, right? So there's no such issue, at least for that data set. But then there will be, that notion of that portage there, like how did you know about that information? So to me there's a community effort, right, first of all, and then there's also in-field data gathering, right? Like I do bring a GPS unit not to look at what I'm navigating, but to actually record the routes that I'm taking, right? So, but I think like the way I see the work that goes into making a map is collecting data and putting it together. Like I claim no ownership on any of that. First of all, a lot of this portage, like it's the First Nations created them. There were ways of traveling the land. Like now it became somehow a provincial park, but it's just this. It does the MNRF own all these portages. I find that I don't know. Like it's paddlers own it, right?
Yeah,
is the way I see it.
So do you look at that as opposed to like instead of do you lose sleep over that, or you just say, hey, look, this is my view of it, not your view. This is my view. Is that how you
exactly? So sometimes there's like editorial choices, right? Like it's sometimes there's a non-official portage to one area, and then the question comes what do I do I put it in or do I not put it in? What's the conservation impact of documenting it and almost promoting a non-official portage? So I tend not to put portages that are unofficial, but if it's really well used, like the damage is done in somehow, and people are going to still take the shortcut, then yeah, it's a choice. But the way I'm set up, though, I'm able to make modifications very quickly. I don't rely on large print runs. I do print the maps myself, so it's almost on demand. So if there are modifications that need to happen, I will do it. And if someone finds a mistake, I will fix it right away. No, by the way, no map out there has no mistake. Like it's a part of it. There's no perfect map.
Yeah, I remember it was recently at an outdoor show, and you and I were chit-chatting there, and I told you, I said somebody had reached out to me because I said that your maps are very well put together, very well laid out, and pretty darn accurate. And the person called me on it and said that, well, I found all kinds of mistakes. I said, well, maybe you should tell him, and I'm sure he would be more than happy to, make the repair and make like on his next publication, it'll be fixed, right?
What?
But him and
I know
chatted
who you're
about
talking
that.
to. That
You
was
know the one
Sandwich
I'm
stuff.
talking about. Yeah.
You
But
know how I
there's
answer that?
disagreements there.
The great way to answer that, again, I'm talking like an old man, whatever, or old person, whatever, is then go and write your own map.
Yeah. Go do it yourself.
Go ahead. Do it. Kevin, I like your book, but I think go write your own book. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So
yeah, like I own the mistakes. If there's a mistake, there's it happens. There's been recently a correction, to the Haliburton Island water trace again, like these, and Ben knows that, like these files are extremely complicated. Like they're not files, they're databases, right? So things happen with databases. Sometimes there may be like a key conflict and data can be overwritten, and the campsite got moved in a completely wrong location, right? It's like, oh my God, how did that happen? So fix it right away, reprint the map, send the corrected maps, and then from now on, all maps are corrected, right? So it does happen.
So moving on from that, then, there's Jeff's maps. Everybody remembers Jeff McMurtry, I believe it is. He had out a series of maps that people still utilize to this day for different canoe routes. But everything always leads back to what's right over Kevin's left shoulder there. Right shoulder if you're looking at the screen, being held up by a paddle. Our topo maps. It's a very reliable source. People are always looking for topo maps. I have a couple resources that I'd be more than happy to share with people they're out there and they're online, where you can actually get free topo maps, free downloads of topo maps, I should say. But they're not as detailed as actually buying a paper one, because the paper one has all your declination marks and your grids and stuff like that on there.
It's not that, Dennis. Actually, the topo maps that are available from the government it's exactly what I use as a base, right? So first of all, we've got to realize the massive effort that it is to have the complete whole of Canada covered at 50,000 scale, right? It's all available for all Canadians, free of charge. You can download and print your own base topo maps from the government, and that's amazing, right? Well, pay for it with taxes, but it's still, we have access to it. The problem is some of that data has been collected 20 years ago. Some of that data has been digitized by auto scanning these old surveys, dating way back, and with auto tracing tools, and they're inaccurate. They're inaccurate to the way the land is now, or the accuracy is not there. Like the base of photography that was used to create these vector shapes were not as good as it is now. So there are problems. And I was actually talking to Hap Wilson at the Adventure Show, and he was saying that's a problem for Temagami, because it's some of these topo maps make you believe that there is a way there, or that you can actually paddle for an area, and you can't, right? So you can, by being creative and creating your own route, you can be misled by what you're seeing on the map that's not really matching what you see on the land. So there is also that responsibility when you're making a map, in thinking, well, people do go out there, and I'd better make sure, as to the best of my ability, that I am as accurate as I can be putting it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are some of these resources where we can actually get or download free topographical maps?
So I don't have the URL really like memorized, but there's two things you can download. So you can download the actual data sets that are making the topo map. So it's raw data, right? That you can just put in. There's a data extraction tool that's called the CanVec, which stands for like Canadian Vector Dataset, CanVec, right? There's an extraction tool where you can download in different formats the raw data from it. So if you're not somewhat comfortable working with GIS tools, then it's a little bit difficult to use, right? You can also, there are like print-on-demand shops that will print you, like you choose the area you want, and they will send you a printed map of it. So it's 50,000 scale. You like 1/50,000. You don't have the choice there. That's what it is, and they print you that area, right?
Yeah.
So there's a fee, and you get what you get. Base Canadian topo map in the colors that they've chosen and the level of details that they have available. So like things like contour lines are like.
Yeah.
Well, they don't give you a great sense of the land unless somewhere in the Rocky Zone, you know. It is
Right.
actually
A couple resources that I utilize: CAN Maps, www.canmaps.com. You could download free topos there from images, but you could also, as you mentioned, you can buy maps and they'll print you and send you a printed detailed map. When I say detailed, that it includes all your grid lines and you know, like what Kevin has been holding up, time and time again. There, another one is the Atlas of Canada Toporama, and then Google Maps and satellite images, which isn't quite as detailed, but you have some detail there, mind you. Some of it, the Google imaging there is a great way to download, or not download, but print. Where's that from there, Kevin?
Yeah, so today, it was really a good point to make here. Is so I worked at the School of Natural Resources in Lindsay. So in the old days, I would go to the library and they would have every topo map there, and then I would photocopy, because I worked there. I would photocopy the color print for my trips, and then I would laminate it. There was a laminator there. That's what we did. That doesn't exist anymore. I went to the library today to get maps for the Mississippi River I'm doing in southeastern Ontario in a couple weeks, and they didn't even have a photocopier anymore. They're looking at me like, "You're old." I went,
yeah, they have
so I went to Toporama. So what you're talking about, Dennis, and I actually went and photocopied Toporama, and you can zoom in, zoom out. So I did that, and it was free, right? I mean, well, if I went to the local library, I could do that, and it was like 10 cents a copy. Well, probably more than that, whatever. But Toporama is really good, except you really have to look at the detail and print it. World of Maps in Ottawa is my source for topo maps. World of Maps is a store, and they have every single map possible. So for years, I've dealt with them. So
cool. Arnaud, one more thing about your maps. What are they printed on? Because that is a good feature of these things.
So I think that paper is absolutely amazing, because to the touch, it feels like regular paper, like a bit fragile, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get a good map case for it, because it's going to fall apart really quickly. But actually, it's not. It's completely waterproof. It's grease resistant, tear resistant, and you can write on it like with like any regular pencil. It feels like paper, but it is not. It's really tough, rugged, rugged. By the way, yes, I still, you know, with even if the paper is awesome, I really recommend the Recreational Barrelworks map case. It's the best map case, like to the point that I actually carry it on the website. Because it's the best. Try them all; they all fall apart, and it's like Andy's done a phenomenal job. It's the best map case money can buy right now. It's awesome. Love it. Love the zipper, everything. And you can
Yeah,
even
I used mine for the first time too this past weekend, and yeah, really nice.
Yeah, it's so great.
3 of your panels open, nice. No, 4 panels open wide, right? Like, yeah.
And I don't do that, but for people that use touchscreens and stuff, you can operate your touchscreen from like through the plastic.
Yeah, yeah, you get a workout opening them too, Kevin? Well, you know what? Okay, so we've covered like 4 or 5 different areas here. Now we got to bring it all together when you're planning a trip. Okay, so first thing you do is you go to something like Kevin's books, and you find a route that you want in here or in any one of his other publications, and there you go. I'd have to move my camera to show you my little library of books, but and then you're going to go and, you maybe check on there at the Crown Atlas to see if you're searching Crown land, and you go and put it together with some paddle planner to find the actual route, how long you're going to take to travel from here, there to the next one. And then you're going to get your paper maps from Arnaud, and you're going to go out there and you're going to get your jiggy on with all your paper. Man, I didn't know what to say there. But your jiggy on, Jesus. Yeah, there you go, Kevin. But yeah, so is there anything? Well, we didn't really cover any or too many apps and stuff like that, but I do want to get into some of the questions that we had tonight, because I have been earmarking a bunch of them here. So we'll take a few questions, and then if we have a few minutes left after that, we'll maybe talk a bit more about putting all this stuff together. So are we good with some quick questions, guys?
Sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Wait, I gotta get a whiskey first.
That's okay. You go ahead. Really quick, I'm just going to acknowledge some new members who joined up tonight there. You're all now entered into the draw for next week's show. We got Robert McDonald. Thank you very much. We have Oregon Dave. Thank you very much for your membership joining tonight. And then just here most recently, we got Hemlocks and Loons. Thank you very much for your support, everybody. Like you said, join next week, because one lucky member is going to win a nice $750 prize next, or more than $750. I didn't crunch all the numbers perfect, but maybe $750 to $800 worth of swag. And if anybody is interested in joining there, I'll just put a quick little, where is it here? Not important, I guess. We'll find it. Anyways, yeah, whatever. Okay, we're going to get back to some questions here, which we're going to start at the top there. One of the first questions that come in tonight was from Untamed Ontario, saying, Kevin has shown many of his inspirational texts. Should those be considered primary to his secondary sources, or do we need to look beyond Kevin's books for information on these routes? How detailed are your routes, Kevin?
Oh, no, my routes are detailed for sure. Not as much as Howard Wilson's books are more detailed. He actually shows you where the rock is on the rapid.
Yeah.
I just say, here's the portage. You do, right? But I guess what I was getting at the very beginning, blabbing stuff, is like, go for specific reasons. Like, I want to go, I have a group of 6 people. They're all trout anglers. We don't want a portage because we're all like 70 years old. So that's how you design a route. You actually look at what you can get from all of it, and you decide, all of you decide what's the best route. I mean, yeah, my guidebooks will do all of that. Their maps, Ben's site will do all that for you. There's tons of information out there. In fact, we're blessed now for the amount of information we have compared to 30 years ago, right? But I think it all comes down to meet with your group. I call it the map and flap. We all get together. In fact, Andy came over the other night. We had a map and flap, and we had a whiskey, and we got maps out, and we're looking at where to go. And where it starts is how many days you got, how far you want to drive, what does each individual want to get out of the trip, and what's your physical and mental capabilities. And then you say, okay, where do I get that information from? So you go to the maps or Ben's site, or you go, visit Pine Martin at his house and have coffee with him for 5 days and don't leave.
That's what I would think. I like last year I did the Donald Lake Loop, and I did that based solely off of your in your one book there. You had the Donald Lake Loop, and I got by through the trip. Yeah, I got through that trip without any issues, except for finding a couple of the portages, which without glasses on, I can't really see the best, right? But you know what? Had I had other maps and other planning things and other write-ups, so that's where, finding the maps and finding the planners and stuff like that, the more detail you could go into any canoe trip or kayak trip or hiking trip, with the more details that you go in with, the better and more easily it's going to be to navigate that thing, because you have all the details.
Oh, the more information, the better. I mean, for this Mississippi trip I'm doing, there's not much information at all. And Andy was laughing at me because you're obsessed by this. I went, yeah, I read guidebooks for heaven's sakes. This is my, I wake up like 3 a.m. getting old maps and going nuts, right? But the other side of that is I've had people come up to me and say, Kevin, I want to, I want to catch trout in Algonquin. What do I do? And I went, you know what? Just go. And it's called bush time. I'm sorry. There's no other answer. It's called bush time. I cannot go in the canoe with you. What do you want me to do? Catch the fish for you? Like, I can't do that. Right. It's called.
Okay, over there. He'll catch it for you.
No. But no, it is bush time. And it's called doing your research, and it's called looking at every single website. Remember the days where MyCCR was the big thing? Like yes. Every lunch hour when I was teaching, I would spend reading MyCCR, looking at routes and stuff like that. I was just obsessed, and everybody around me was too. We all were watching MyCCR, and now we're looking at Ben's stuff and Era stuff, and it's progressing, and we've got lots of information. But it comes down to, it's like, it's all bush time too. Like I can tell you one of the best campsites ever is on the north shore of the Booth Lake in Algonquin Park. It's a massive sand beach. Well, I went there, Kevin. I didn't catch any bass. My kids had a terrible time. It was raining. I hated your route. Well, why is that my fault?
Yeah, right. Okay. Evan LaFay was asking way early on. I think this is geared towards Martin. How can you be sure an area is open for use? I checked the atlas once, but was told the area is closed due to misuse, people dumping garbage, had no way of knowing. Can you call somewhere?
Yeah, you have to call the local municipalities. So what sometimes happens is you have a Crown Land area or a Crown Land route that is very, very heavily used and overused. And then the locals get ticked off because, they've got the weekend party crowd that are going there and they're trashing the place. They're cutting down trees. They're they're cutting down live trees for firewood because they don't know better. They're leaving bottles behind, broken camp chairs and stuff like that. They're making fires that are too big and dangerous. They're making noise. People across the lake who own private property across the lake. So, very, very often Crown Land is in a remote area. It's like very close to populated areas. And the locals don't like it. And they'll complain to the township. And then next thing you know, the municipality gets involved, or the township or the district gets involved and says, that's it. We're just barring it. And they'll just drop giant concrete blocks to blockade the access route or the old logging road or whatever. Or they'll post signs. Sometimes they can't block those things. But they will post signs saying no camping. So yes, that can happen. And there's no way when it comes to sort of discovering a new Crown Land location that isn't well established and well known and well discussed and in guidebooks and some of that. There's no way, there's no substitute for ground truthing, which is you've got to go on a reconnaissance trip. I always tell people, look, you want to use the Crown Land Policy Atlas and you want to go and find some Crown Land and you want to explore it and see if there's a route there, or see if you just go on a backpacking trip overnight on land without any paddling. You can do that, but you're going to have to make a day trip of it because you have to figure out where you're going to park. You have to figure out where you can safely leave your vehicle, and whether or not there's a nice place to camp or not. Or are you going to find out that it's just riddled with ATV trails and people ripping around up and down, making all kinds of noise when you're trying to camp. So you need to go on foot. Now, the thing I always tell people is, look, I know it seems like a big deal to say, listen, you're going to drive from, say, Toronto or Mississauga or something like that, and you're going to drive up to, Muskoka or something like that and explore some Crown Land for a day. But that's just a great day hike, right? You're going to have a good time. And pick a couple of places using the Crown Land Policy Atlas that you can go and explore and make a day trip of it and look around, and you might find that, okay, that place doesn't work out. It's not great, or there won't be a good place to park here. I won't feel safe. I don't want to walk 3 kilometers to get to the Crown Land because there's no good place to park anywhere near where I want to just march off into the woods or put my boat into the water or something like that. But very often there is. But there is always the possibility that the municipality, the local authorities, will have closed down an area and forbidden it. That has only happened to me. I think to me, it's only happened once. I have heard it happen to other people, though. So that can happen. And the thing to do then is to contact the municipality, or just say, look, I'm looking at the policy atlas here. I printed off some things. I'm going to make a day trip. I'm going to go and check out 2 places. I'm not bringing my camping gear. I'm bringing a ditch kit with a day pack with some emergency survival equipment and my lunch and water bottles and stuff like that, and my guidebooks and stuff like that. I'm going to go out and spend a wonderful day out in the country. I'm going to be home by dark. At the end of the day, I will probably have found someplace that's cool to camp, or maybe not. Sometimes it's a wash and you don't come up with that, but you spent a wonderful day in the woods. I mean, that is how you find the little gems that no one else knows about. Right? I mean, someone sometime may have camped there, but I have literally found lakes, unnamed lakes, that are gorgeous, that are beautiful. There's not a twig that's been snapped by the shore, right? That no one's even been there for a shore lunch, right? Those are magnificent places. I love those places, right? Mm-hmm. They're typically not canoe routes. They're usually accessible only on foot. But I mean, I have found actually some nice lakes that way too. So you will find those places, but there's no substitute for ground truthing. Make a day trip and do reconnaissance. Don't bring your camping gear. Don't plan on camping. You're only going to be disappointed. Plan on saying, I'm going up north. I'm going to look around. I'm going to find a place or 2, and I'm going to come home. And hopefully by the end of it, I found a fantastic place. And the next weekend, I'm going camping.
Awesome.
Or the next nice weekend, because you don't have to book or make reservations or anything like that. Just the next nice weekend you go. Yeah. And it can be completely spontaneous.
For sure. Okay. T. Miggs is asking a question for Ben. Did you inherit or acquire a database or data set of old camp portage information that would have aggregated from various contributors over many years?
Yes and no. Depends where you're talking about. The vast majority is from government data. So it was, especially in the US, it's very easy to come by. When Arnaud was talking, I was nodding along because his experience is pretty much mine, trying to find all of this stuff and using Ontario open data. And so a lot of it is government data. The exceptions are Quetico campsites. There was a person named Arch Harris who maintained a database of campsites in Quetico because there are no designated campsites in the Quetico. However, there's really only so many places you can camp. And the park doesn't want you creating new campsites either. So for leave no trace. And so what he had done is ask people for information, and over years, the database was refined. I just happened to be at the right place, at the right time. I was building Paddle Planner, and I knew about his. I had contributed to the database a few times, and I asked him, I have this website. Can I use your data? And he said, I'm retiring. Do you want to take it over? And I said, of course I do. So it was very fortunate. The other one is Wabakimi. As I said, I work with Friends of Wabakimi, a great organization to work with. Oregon Dave is one of your new members. He's one of the key members there as well. So
Oregon Dave and I, we waited for a plane together in a hotel, cabin in the hotel room. So yeah, how you doing, Dave? Okay, so this next question is pretty interesting too. As I gain tripping experience, I tend to rely less on trip planning. Can experience replace trip planning to any extent, or should it? Who wants to take that one?
I see this question a lot on the internet. People asking on forums, all this trip planning stuff, and people say, just go. And I say, no, don't just go if you're not experienced. You need to do some planning. Even if you are experienced, you need to do some initial planning. Now, what I say is you plan and then you're flexible. So things might not work out. but at least you have a plan. At least you know this is how far I could go. But you do need to be flexible.
I agree with Ben, but no, we got to think about this. Like some of the best trips I've ever done are ones that I didn't plan that much. Sometimes we plan too much.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to the point that sometimes the planning of the trip is better than the trip. It's weird.
I think it depends on your personality. Like at Camper Christina, she is a planner. She is going to go through every single possible scenarios. I'm not good at planning, so that's
I'll give you a little take on my Wabakimi planning here right now. Everybody has everybody knows Bruce up in Wabakimi as a legend up there, and knowing everything. Almost like he was born a rock in Wabakimi. And if you do his if you use his trip planning, basically he circles where you're going to catch fish, exactly what the best campsite is. And I don't want that experience. I want the experience of going out there and finding my own fishing hole. That's a good one. Or coming across a campsite that, we'll camp here, and then you paddle the next day for the first 20 minutes and you pass a glorious campsite and you go, crap, right? We could have had this if we'd have gone. To me, that's part of the experience of not knowing exactly what's around the next corner. You know what? I want to go there and I want to experience it for firsthand, at trying to find this stuff, right? So we've opted away from that particular type of planning for that trip. We've taken a different avenue with the help of friends of Wabakimi. Like, these guys have been fantastic. These guys all have a passion for that area. And same goes for friends of Tamagami and friends of Algonquin and Quetico and the Quetico Foundation. These are all great resources that'll help you through your planning. But it's not, to me, it's not like you said, Kevin, sometimes it's more fun planning, and you get there, it's not all the glory's not there. I want the glory there, not here, but I want to be prepared for that glory, right?
You should be prepared. I deal with that with the Mississippi trip. I'm dealing with. What a friggin' nightmare! It's all landowner issues, and honest to God, I don't know why I'm doing this trip. But when I did the Thames River, I had everything planned to where I was camping because it's a urban river. And the first night, I had it all planned too. And the very first night, whoever the scouts that were supposed to be there on the scouts property were not there. I was like, "Whoa, what the? This is my first day of like a 10-day trip," and I was like, "I don't even know where to sleep." And this guy, "Hey, Kevin, how you doing?" He was playing with his kids on a bouncy gym, whatever. "What's going on?" I went, "Well, I don't know where to camp." "Right here." And I put my tent right beside his bouncy gym. His wife made me breakfast. I pooped in their toilet before I left.
Can I just say something about? Could I just say something about safety? There, a couple of people in the chat have brought up the issue of safety. When you're out on Crown land, you are often in a more remote area where you're not likely to bump into people. And we have cell phones now, so it's a little less worrisome, right? But you can't count on your cell phone. You can't count on cell signals. And I used to, do Crown land camping. When I started doing it, I didn't own a smartphone. There wasn't such a thing as a smartphone. There were very few cell towers around until much later. And so you were out there, and there was just nothing unless you wanted to bring a satellite phone with you, which I never did. But what I did do was I had people that I could trust. And I don't mean trust that I can tell them where I'm going camping. I mean, I could trust that they would absolutely spring into action if I didn't call when I got back. If I was late coming back, they would spring into action. They would notify the authorities. They'd start looking. So there's a kind of sacred trust there. So part of, sort of planning a trip, you have to have the route worked out well enough that people know where the hell to look for you if you're late coming back. I mean, that's absolutely crucial. And you have to tell somebody where you're going to be. And the tentative route that you plan. Now, I am very much not a trip planner. I am very much a seat of the pants. We're going to this area, and we're putting in here, and we're going to try to get here. And half the time we can't. There's no getting from here to there, right? We discover nope. Ground truthing proves that the Google satellite image is misleading, right? As Arnaud said, a map is an interpretation of the reality. It filters out what is irrelevant and extraneous, and it includes, or is supposed to include, what is relevant to you as a canoe tripper, right? And so it's like a story. It is a narrative. It includes details. It excludes details. And that's why a map is typically better than just Google satellite images, although I use those all the time. But I'm not someone who is worried about, oh, I can't get there from here. Well, what'll I do? Well, I guess I'll stay on this lake longer than I thought, or I'll have to back paddle down and find another way around through some, creeks and stuff like that. Now, I'm prepared to do that. I enjoy that kind of stuff. That for me is a sense of adventure. I don't do remote trips out into, like Jim Baird and the Ungava Peninsula and stuff like that. I don't do these epic adventures. My adventures are really small. They're really local, but they're just as filled with the sense of discovery. But the one thing I make sure of is that somebody knows where I was going to park, where I was, where my car is supposed to be, where I was going to put in and start, and when I'm coming out, and an approximate route of where I'm going to be, so that people have an idea where to look if something goes wrong. It's less worrisome today with cell phone technology and Zolios and spot devices and inReaches being very, very common now. But you should let somebody know, and that should be part of your trip planning and preparation.
Sure. Okay, we're already 13 minutes past 9 o'clock, so we have 5 more questions. We'll just probably do a really quick answers for these, just so we can close up the show tonight. And this one goes along with safety from Untamed Ontario again. Is when planning a trip without relying on an outfitter, will an outfitter support emergency support via satellite communication, or should they just rely on Spot or Zolio or Garmin's or whatever? I guess that's something you would have to take up with an outfitter to see if they
some outfitters supply the devices. Like Algonquin Outfitters rents these devices. Like I don't know what specifically they rent out, but I think something like the Garmin InReach or something like that. You can rent those when you're getting outfitted for your trip.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Martin, you put in a private chat about a lot of people are asking about parking problems when it comes to parking for Crown land, and somebody also asked about, is it okay to park on like a hydro cut corridor or a pipeline corridor type of deal?
Yeah, there were a number of questions and comments about where to park. In all of the years that I've been talking about Crown land camping, it is the single most common, frequently recurring question. So where the heck do I park? Now, if you get Kevin's books, or he always tells you, here's the put in. There's a safe place to park here, and you'll put in here, and you'll do a loop or whatever. Or if it's a shuttle, he'll have places where you can park at the start and end of your trip. So that's all done for you if you use those books. But when you're looking at the Crown Land Policy Atlas and trying to concoct your own route, you don't know where you can park, and you won't know until you go there. And you maybe don't want to prepare a lot of food and book some time off work, to do a 5 or 6 day trip, and then get there and find there isn't a place anywhere near where you can put in to park that's safe, right? So where do you park? Well, there's all kinds of places you can park. Very often there's a boat launch, and if there's a boat launch, very often there's parking there. There might be a parking fee. You might have there might be a marina where you have to pay a fee to keep your vehicle there for a few nights. Very often there's a local business nearby. There could be a tavern, a restaurant or something. You can just go in and say, I'd like to leave my car here for a few days. I'm going to go camping. It would be all right. As long as it's close enough where you can, drop off your gear and portage your boat to, or leave your boat there with someone and go drop off the car and go back, that will work. You can sometimes, if there's someone who has private property nearby, you can go and say, hey, listen, I want to go camping. Would it be all right if I left my car in your driveway or on your property somewhere? Here's a few bucks for that. You're not responsible for anything. I don't want it on the side of the road. You can't leave your vehicle on the side of the road. That's vehicular abandonment. You could run into problems with your insurance if something happens to your vehicle. The police will stop and see a vehicle on the side of the road on the shoulder illegally parked. It's not a good idea. You can't really do that. Very often, though, it's up north. There isn't always like a ditch on the side of the road. Very often, the bedrock goes right across the highway, onto both sides, and you can literally pull off the road and and up onto a clearing far enough from the road that your vehicle will not look like it's abandoned on the side of the road, and you're not under a power cut line, and you're not too close to the to vehicles and stuff like that. And I've done that many times. I've been for years planning on making a video about this, where I have pictures of where my car is parked while I'm on a camping trip. And it's perfectly safe to leave your vehicle out in the middle of nowhere. People think it's a terrible idea. My car will be vandalized. It'll be broken into. I'll be robbed. Don't leave any food in your car. Don't leave any valuables in your car. Just to be on the safe side. You don't want to attract bears to your vehicle because they can get into your vehicle. But your vehicle will probably be safer out in the middle of nowhere than it will be at any trailhead. Trailheads is where the thieves go to break into cars, because there's a whole bunch of cars that are going to be there for days, and they can just smash one windshield after another. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it at Halliburton Highlands water trails. Just one vehicle window smashed after another. You look in those parking lots, you'll see broken glass. And it's because thieves have been breaking into people's cars. So you can leave your vehicle out in the middle of nowhere if you want to, but there's other options. There's local businesses, there's marinas, there's private property owners. But again, this is all ground truthing. You're going to have to go, and make a day trip and look around and explore. And one of the things you're looking to find is a place where you can drop off your canoe, drop off your gear, let your friends stay with that, go park your car, and then walk back and meet up with your friends. That's the way it's done. That's the way I've always done it. It works fine. I've never had a problem with my vehicle.
Excellent. Pamela Shuley's asking, how do you interpret and mark Government of Canada topographical maps for routes that don't have a paper or electronic canoe map? In particular, I'm thinking about rapids and waterfalls. Arnaud?
Yeah, so actually, rapids and waterfalls are part of the CanVec dataset. The government is marking some of them, not all of them. And then other sources to get that data correct, aerial photography, right? There's other GIS tools and techniques to find certain things. Like there's, part of collecting that data for rivers is the whole hydrography studies. So part of that, you can have a flow data that you can interpret that as a rapid in certain areas. And then in-field gathering, right? You go there, there's a rapid, you mark it. The three techniques.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, and we got two more that will close up the show. First one is from Montaigne, Ontario. Once again, I think we kind of answered this earlier, but can too much information spoil a trip? Most certainly. Most certainly. You can take the luster off it, right?
Depends on your personality, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's right. That's true. It's everybody different strokes for different folks.
I think Arnaud mentioned Camper Christina. She loves the planning.
Yeah.
For her, there's no such thing as too much information. I think for most of us, though, it's too much will spoil the trip and loses its sense of adventure.
Cool.
Sorry, Dennis. Really quickly, what my buddy does, Andy does with me every year to help with this question, is that he picks me up. We do a trip. I don't know where we're going. I'm not allowed to film it. I don't know where we're going. And why is because he goes, you spend your entire life planning trips. You need one trip where you want to have a sweet clue and don't really care who you tell. And you don't, and he does it. And that is so fulfilling.
Wish I had a friend like that. I always do the planning. It's not too often I get to go on a trip that's, I don't know if once I think I did an Algonquin trip with these guys. And they did all the planning, right? But still, I had to have my part of it. But yeah, that's great. You could thank Andy for that.
Oh no, it's fantastic because for years I either wrote guidebooks or I guided, and then when I went to go on a trip, Andy finally said, "Do you not go on a trip without planning?" I went, "No, that's all I do." And he goes, "Well, it's going to change."
Interesting.
It messes me up. I will admit, it messes me up.
And last question for the evening. There might be more in the chat. I haven't seen the chat in a little while because we've been going through the questions here. But Donald Dakota's asking, maps run north to south and east to west. Why is Algonquin on a northwest slant? That's how they control the water flow.
It fits better on the paper that way.
I don't have the answer.
Hey, I got a couple of guys down here laughing. Why is that, guys?
So, like, maps need to fit on paper. So sometimes you rotate the map. It makes more sense to get that to fit. So simple as that. So like it's always on the grid, right? The map, there's always a printed grid. It's the UTM grid. It's very useful for trip planning, by the way. So if you see that it's not straight, then you know that grid north will point where the grid is slanted, right? And that's typically to make sure that it fits on a piece of paper once printed, without costing double the price or be unpractical and have lots of areas that would be empty because it's not fitting in a rectangle. So that's the reason. And
Kevin, you seem shocked
it's
by
also a
that.
decision, right? Like in terms of like map design. Like I like my grid straight. Like I will be like try to make it fit. I'll split it differently, but
or print it on two maps, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Kevin, you look amazed by that.
Oh, that guy's a genius. I'm looking for the tape between your glasses.
I actually looked into the size of paper that you need to print Algonquin without slanting it. It is significantly more paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine yelling with these guys?
See,
Oh
we all learned something tonight. That's incredible.
Well, no, genius is fantastic. No, maybe Pine Martin. No, forget that. Right? I would know. But these two guys.
Jeez. Well, you know what, gents? Thank you very much for all your knowledge that you shared tonight with everybody. You know what? Great show tonight. We maintained like 120 to 150 people all night. That's a very interesting topic that we discussed tonight. I think everybody learned a little bit of something. Kevin, Martin, Ben, Arnaud, thank you very much. Just really quickly, for anybody that might be looking for some resources, if you go to the description below, I have a whole list of Kevin Callan's route books and stuff like that. If anybody's looking to pick something up like that, including the top 70 canoe routes book, which you're proud of this, aren't you?
I am. I really should be proud
of that. That's a very good resource for the Canadian Atlas, Crownland Atlas. There, I got the link to that underneath Martin's credentials there, and his it links to his YouTube channel. For Arnaud, LatLong Maps, I have a link to his website there if you're interested in picking up some maps, and same for Ben and Paddle Planner. If you need the link to that, that's also down there. So by all means, please do check them out, and you know what? Go plan yourself a great outing this year, or 2 or 3. That's the whole purpose of this thing. Gents, thanks very much for joining us. I'm going to drop you all to the green room. Anybody have anything they want to say before they disappear? No?
I love you all. I love you all.
Okay, see you all in a few short moments here.
Right.
All right. Hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. You know what? Great bunch of guys that we had on tonight. Very knowledgeable, all in their own right. I think I picked 4 perfect people for this. I could have had a bunch more on, but there's only so much room on this screen here. Once again, to those of you who became channel members tonight, thank you very much for doing that. In order to get your perks started, I need you to send me your mailing address and your contact information so I can get you started with your channel membership decals and your channel membership badge decal. And yeah, we'll get that all going. You're all entered into next week's draw. So thank you very much for that. Don't forget, next week is the season finale of season 4 here for Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show, because summertime comes and this guy wants to get out and play some. I do have a couple videos coming down the pipe. I know I keep saying that, but it's hard to do this and then edit videos and stuff like that. But I got a little video coming your way. My little trip to Nova Craft Canoe to pick up my new Bob Special. That's what a beautiful boat that is. And then, of course, I took it out this past weekend up to Queen Elizabeth II Wildlands. Got some video footage there of, the rain and the mosquitoes and a few other things. So, yeah, we're going to have a couple videos coming down the pipe as well. So keep an eye open for those. If you want any more details on next week's show, which we're still in the works, follow us on Facebook at Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show. So with that all being said, I hope everybody has a great week. And remember, please keep the adventures alive. Until next time.